From Life at Home in the 21st Century. Informational text by Jean E. Arnold. Television and Daily Life. In North America, and in as few as 3 generations, mass media broadcast by analog and digital signal has all but replaced oral history and become the primary conveyor of culturally shared ideas. Broadcast communication, particularly television-streamed content, figures so prominently in economic decisions, political outcomes, and moral reasoning that even at the height of the last U.S. recession, TV advertising expenditures exceeded $50 billion. Television is now so intricately woven into the fabric of the American family experience that few children born during the last 2 decades will be able to imagine a social world that has not been partly shaped by the imagery, discourse, and ideas originating from television programming. In fact, many 21st century children are born in the physical presence of a TV. Most labor, delivery, and recovery rooms in the U.S. now feature large, wall-mounted flat panel sets. That TVs are witness to such intimate and emotionally bonding experiences speaks volumes about televisions and the American way of being. Currently, 99% of U.S. households own a TV, and more than 50% own 3 or more. All of the families in our study have at least one TV, and most have 2 or more. One set is typically located in a large space used by all family members, such as the living room, family room, or den. The set used by the collective is a compelling example of an object that is not merely a tangible product of otherwise invisible cultural forces, but rather an agentive participant in the daily production of social lives. The introduction of a new TV to a living room, for example, shapes the decisions underlying where we locate our furniture, where we direct our gaze, and how we orient our bodies. At some deeper cognitive level, our relationship to the TV, which includes a relationship to the object itself, but also our personal experiences centering on TV media, even shapes the ways that we relate to our built spaces. Our photographs of living room assemblages repeatedly reveal spaces organized around televisions, rather than spaces with other primary affordances, such as face-to-face conversation. For all of its influence on the design and organization of space, the TV may as well be a hearth, which until quite recently in human history exerted the most influence on the spatial distribution of social interactions and activities inside homes. Indeed, families often locate the TV immediately adjacent to a wood-burning stove or fireplace, and new homes feature recessed fireplace-like nooks designed for television sets. The TV has ascended to the rank of essential major appliance, alongside the refrigerator, clothes washer, and dryer, around which builders and architects imagine the designs of residential spaces. Families now also routinely equip various bedrooms with televisions. Fully 25 of the 32 CELF families, 78%, have a TV in the parent's bedroom, and 14 families, 47%, place a TV in one or more of the bedrooms used by children. Researchers at the Kaiser Family Foundation surveyed 1,051 U.S. households with young children and found that 43% place a TV in at least one child's bedroom. The same Kaiser-funded project reveals that 87% of children aged 4 to 6 years are able to turn on the TV without assistance. Most 2- and 3-year-olds can do the same, 82%, and the majority of children belonging to both age groups are capable of changing the channel. Suffice it to say that American children learn how to operate and engage with the TV at a very young age, a fact that has motivated more than 4,000 studies addressing the impacts of TV on children, education, and the social lives of families. These impacts, however, are debated. Some researchers associate TV viewing with reduced social interaction, while others report the opposite and even see evidence for families' use of TV time as a platform for togetherness. Research based on our unique observational data sets is new to the discussion and actually lends support to both generalizations, reflecting the complex relationship Americans have with television. For example, our study shows that families are not actively engaging with TV as much as we might otherwise predict. Attentive, focused TV viewing accounts for only 11% of all primary person-centered scan sampling observations, and the careful coding of 380 hours of videotape derived from our observational videography reveals that families engage with TV media on weekday afternoons and evenings for an average daily total of just 46 minutes, although the TV may be turned on for much longer periods. Furthermore, families viewing is usually a social experience. During about 2/3 of observations where a child or adult watches TV, at least one other family member is present. However, children are slightly more likely than their parents to watch TV alone. Kids view solo in about 17% of the cases where we record TV viewing as the primary activity. Mothers and fathers watch alone in only 6% and 13% of the cases, respectively. We also found that children much more frequently watch TV in a bedroom. 34% of primary TV observations alone or with others than either of their parents, 9% for mothers and 10% for fathers. Indeed, the socially isolating potential of TV appears higher among families that have more than one TV set in the home. Children in families that have TVs in one or more bedroom spaces are more likely to watch TV alone than children in families that do not have a TV in a child's or parent's bedroom. The material legacy of TV. The proliferation of video media technology since the debut of network television in 1946 has had a profound influence on American lifestyles. Indeed, few Americans can imagine everyday life without access to TV. Television is so entrenched in popular culture that we are surprised when we meet people who do not have at least one set. In 1947, U.S. households owned 44,000 TVs, just one set per 3,275 people. During the early 2000s, people purchased about 31 million TVs annually in the U.S., or one new TV for every 9 Americans each year. Of course, sales figures do not reflect the number of sets already found in what archaeologists regard as systemic context, here, the home, the behavioral system in which artifacts participate in everyday life. The full inventory of TVs emerges only when the count includes the sets purchased in years past and still in the house. Only some older TVs are replaced. As is true for most artifacts, the life history of each individual television is entangled in the changing ways that families use them, the availability of similar artifacts in the home, and the desire for newer forms of visual media technologies. Eventually, the life history of a TV, or at least the portion of the life history that overlaps with family use, comes to an end. At that point, the artifact exits the systemic context and enters an archaeological context, a state in which interaction is primarily with the natural environment, such as the city dump. The Environmental Protection Agency estimates that during the mid-2000s, Americans discarded an average of 1.5 billion pounds of TVs each year, in the range of 25 to 27 million sets annually, of which only 4 to 4.5 million were collected for domestic recycling. An archaeology of TVs. The rate at which TV technology evolves and the sheer volume of television sets people discard both suggest that this artifact will be particularly useful for teasing out discrete generations of household refuse from the materially complex and jumbled strata that constitute our municipal landfills. Archaeologists rely on seriation, the sequencing of functionally similar artifacts based on stylistic differences, as a method for ascertaining relative chronology at archaeological sites. Although seriation cannot be used to pinpoint a specific date, it places older and younger materials in order based on the simple assumption that object styles change over time. Frequency seriation thus determines the relative age of each layer. We expect 1980s-era landfill strata to contain high proportions of black and white TVs and color CRT TV sets, but very low proportions of rear projection TVs and no flat panels. Garbage layers forming today will contain few black and white sets, numerous color CRT sets, and, assuming a continued low rate of recycling, an increasing number of flat panels, assuming that household disposal of any particular TV may post-date its purchase by a decade or more. Archaeologists often use battleship curves to depict frequency seriation patterns. These graphs are particularly useful for showing changes in the proportion of different technological styles of artifacts over time. Interpretation of the curves is straightforward. The width of a horizontal bar for each year represents a percentage of a total count, see right axis opposite. In 1990, for example, 22.6 million TVs were purchased in the U.S. Only 6% were black and white sets, whereas 46% were color CRT models, less than 19 inches in size, and another 46% were large color CRT models. Just 2% were the new rear projection models, and flat panels had not yet debuted. The shape of each battleship curve is particularly telling, providing an at-a-glance account of changes in the popularity of an artifact style or type over the course of its history. After the artifact's introduction, curves typically become gradually wider as the artifact style becomes more popular. As newer styles enter the material system, the first curve tapers and eventually terminates altogether. The maximum widths and rates of tapering, in both directions, summarize the popularity, rapidity of change in preference or supply, and persistence through time. In the complex story of U.S. television consumption, several well-defined patterns emerge. Black and white TV sets persisted until the early 2000s, long after color CRT sets began dominating household assemblages, and rear projection units enjoyed a long lifespan but never gained popularity. When significantly better TV technology emerged in the form of flat panel models, color CRT models declined precipitously, producing the narrow profiles at the tops of the CRT battleship. The adoption rate of flat panel sets has been steep and unprecedented in the domain of television technology, expanding as CRT use plummeted.